takes. He takes the queen first, king f1, still has the queen side imbalance, and now begins the piece transfer over there. Obviously, at this point, black can really consider the move a5. But then there's rook a1. Oh, not that. Rook a1, and then you're pinned. Little bit annoying. So Hikaru begins transferring the pieces that way too, and doesn't want to continue the transfer because he's too slow. Like knight e7's just too slow. White solidifies, rook a1. He gets his knight here, one of these knights, maybe to c4, and he's just better. So Hikaru just finds just the perfect move. He plays f5. He loses a pawn with tempo because knight e7 and now white's pawns are split and they're both liabilities. So he plays the best defensive move at the right moment. Levon solidifies, takes, now knight f4. So now this pawn is now going to be a liability for this knight on f6. So if white ever begins the full transfer of the knights this way, this pawn will stay a liability. Takes, king e2, and Levon continues to try to apply some pressure by bringing the king and defending the e4 pawn, right? So that's the idea. Rook b8, rook b1, knight f6. At this point, I think the best move and the only winning chance was it king d3? No, it wasn't king d3 because then b4 is hanging, right? There was some moment here, I can't remember where it was, where there was like one very brief moment. Maybe it was this, I don't know. Where Stockfish was trying to say that the ensuing endgame was going to be better for white. Like it wanted this or something. Like it wanted Levon to go for this. And try to go for the d6 pawn while trying to defend e4. But Levon played rook b1 and Hikaru got his counterplay. So everything that he has envisioned, all the critical moments of this game, he's just defending very well. Levon has to make one final push into the black position. And I think this might have been the moment. I think here he had to take a step backwards and play to e2. And the reason is, now that black's knight is paralyzed to defending the d6 pawn, he can't go back to f6 because you lose this, right? And you defend everything. And what happens now is that the king gets to d3 and this is always protected. This was it. Move 39, Levon had to, like, if you look at the trajectory of his moves, king f3, knight c4, is going forward, right? Right? So he obviously will play h4 after knight e8 because you're going forward. But sometimes in chess you have to pump the brakes and you have to not go forward. You have to improve your position ever so slightly before you go forward. I struggle with this all the time. A slight improving move, just asking, what is my opponent going to do? They can't really do much. Obviously, it's not just that simple, but he plays h4, and now Hikaru sees that the knight is coming to c6, and I mentioned this a while ago. When the knight goes too far, suddenly the knight comes back, and g4 is counterplay. It's just pure counterplay is coming. So if you play knight c6, which looks like the game plan, you have no way to protect this pawn. For example, you can play rook e1, but then oops. It looked like that pawn was untouchable, but oops, now black is winning. And we have takes, knight c6, and actually almost all of that happens. Knight d4, Hikaru plays g4 check, takes, and Levon just says, I'm going forward with the king. If I'm gonna lose this match, I'm gonna go out on my sword. I am not repeating moves and knocking myself out of the Grand Prix. I'm gonna play this for a win. Rook d4, king f6, Hikaru takes another pawn. It's now two rooks, but 3-2. Black is up pawns. So it's probably looking like Hikaru might just get a perpetual check. Levon's like, no, thank you. I told you I am going out the way I want, and the way I want is going to lead to my king getting forced to the very, very back rank. And Hikaru sets up the board for the next game that's going to be played with that chess set by bringing his rook back to its home square, and it's a ladder mate that cannot be prevented. It cannot be prevented. If you give a check, it's mate in two. And that's it. Rook h8, setting up for the very next game. I don't know when the next game is going to be, probably in several weeks. And Levon has lost. Hikaru is the champion of the first leg of the FIDE Grand Prix in Berlin. Exceptional. Didn't play a classical chess game in 800 days. And nobody knew what was going to happen. Absolutely nobody knew how he was going to perform. And he won it. And he mentioned in the interview afterward that now he's just a lot more happy. He's a lot less stressed about his games, and it allows him to handle bad positions easier. You know, it allows him to... His entire life and career isn't about all this competitive chess anymore, so when he has a slightly worse position, he just tries to play the board. Doesn't play anything big picture. To be honest, I mean, I even have something to learn from that. right? Because as you see in many of my own tournament games, sometimes I'm really struggling. I'm like in my own head a lot. And what this means for the standings of the Grand Prix is Hikaru gets 13 points. If you win a Grand Prix cycle like this, you get 13 points. If you get second place, you get 10 points. It's all on their website. If you're like knocked out in the semis, you get 7 points. There are now 2 more Grand Prix, Belgrade and Berlin again. I think Hikaru is playing in Berlin in the 3rd leg. So it doesn't mean he's guaranteed a candidate spot yet. But if he does well enough in the 2nd leg, doesn't have to win it, but maybe the semis, maybe 2nd place in his group, that score in total will qualify him to the candidates or not. So Levon and Hikaru are in the best position right now. I don't think he's playing in Belgrade, but that's massive. I mean, that's absolutely huge, and we're going to see as the Grand Prix unfolds. I'm obviously going to be making recaps of all of them. So big congratulations to Hikaru. Also congratulations and I guess condolences to Aranyan for making but also losing in the final. And that concludes the recaps, folks. I hope you enjoyed. I don't think I have anything left to say to you. I've very much enjoyed making the coverage of these games and your comments, and you were all super hyped to see this dude. So much love.